Welcome back to the Bullpen Mafia. We have a very special guest here with us today in the height of college football season. We brought the Fox Sports wagering expert, Chris Fallica, the Bear. I've gotten to know the Bear through one of the most influential Miami Hurricanes group chats of all time. So very lucky to call him a friend. But the Bear, thanks so much for joining the Mafia. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to be on with you guys. It's funny because I always, like, during the summer when we were previewing college football and doing our conference stuff and maybe some soccer, I was always trying to wedge some baseball talk in there at the end. And I know Will and Sammy P were having some of, but I wish I could have done more. We did do a baseball preview pod before the year, but as the year went on, we talked less and less baseball, and that kind of sucks because it's funny how, as a big college football guy that I am, and obviously you guys are with your affiliations with Miami and Florida State and somehow Rhode Island, I think. the former Yankee Conference legends, the URI Rams. But like baseball postseason, there really is nothing better than that. You could just miss the entire baseball regular season and flip it on come Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever the playoffs are going to start, after they figure out their weather situation in the rescheduling. And there's nothing more tense and more exciting than that.
No, and I think too the addition of the wild card teams has added just this playoff race that we haven't seen in a very long time. I think it was Rob Manfred hasn't necessarily had great series of moves, but this was definitely one of them, adding more postseason teams, getting these races better down the stretch. Bear, you have a lot in common with Petey and I, and obviously Toad as well. We're all guys that never made it to the major leagues, but we usually like when we have guys on, we like to ask them, their call-up story. And I think you're a unique story. You're graduate University of Miami. Mm-hmm. Originally from New York, Long Island. So, Bear, how did you end up at the University of Miami? How did that transition? How did you end up down here? And then now in your line of work, you worked for so long at ESPN, mm-hmm. College Game Day, now Big Noon Kickoff at Fox. How did you sort of transition to this analytical, statistical, now giving the America what they need in terms of picks?
Well, we try. We'll try and give you the shortest possible version of it. But I always knew I wanted to be involved in sportscasting and sports in general. And growing up on Long Island, I knew I wasn't going to play college football or college baseball. I wasn't that level of player, but I knew I wanted to be involved in a big major athletic department and be involved in broadcasting. So growing up at that point in the early 90s, you knew you were either going to go to Syracuse like everybody else or somewhere else. And I wanted to get south. I actually remember going to Florida to visit Miami, and then supposed to go to Gainesville the next day. And I went to Miami and loved it. And then the morning I was supposed to go to Gainesville, I somehow came down with food poisoning or whatever. It never made it there. That was a great omen right there, telling me that you were going to Miami, and that was it. But I actually wound up my senior year. I had gotten early admission. I wound up getting involved in Send Miami Sports Information, a note about wanting to work in there, and they did. And then I'm kind of dragging this on, but essentially, we used to provide visiting radio and television statistics for that. Someone would come down, the Knicks would come down and for a Heat game, and they would Miami SID and the Heat would get together, and they need people to cover WFAN stats, or the NBC would come in for a Dolphins game, and you need a local statistician. So I kind of got gigs like that, which was a nice way to make an extra $50, $75, $100 for a college kid. But it also built up the Rolodex. And one night I happened to work WFAN radio stats for a Knicks Heat game, and basically just said to Mike Breen, hey, from Long Island, going into my senior year, just looking for kind of a summer job, a summer internship, and anything there. And he's like, absolutely. Call me back when we get back from the road trip, and I'll get you in touch with the right people. And he did. And then after I graduated, one of the executives at WFAN wound up moving up to ESPN Radio when ESPN Radio first got started in the mid-90s. Knew I was looking for a gig, so I wound up getting my foot in the door at ESPN through the startup at ESPN Radio. Word got around that they had this college football statistical stat junkie savant in there, and the game day research position opened up, and I wound up getting that gig, and then it just kind of grew into what it was. And then a couple of years ago, my contract was up, and Fox got wind of that, and they were like, you know what, we're kind of gambling is kind of taking off right now, and we know he likes soccer, we know he likes horse racing, we know he likes college football and the NFL as well. let's see what we can do here. And here I am. But yeah, like I said, like I said, I was always the kid sitting on the couch, 8, 9, 10 years old, with my Scoremaster book out, keeping score of a Yankees-Angels game from like July 1981. So like I said, it's in my blood.
At what point in that timeline did Chris become the Bear?
That would be, ironically, 2002. It was the year Miami wound up playing Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl, and it was compliments of Lee Corso. We were sitting in Kirk and I were sitting at like one of the restaurants there in the hotel lobby in T-shirt, gym shorts, kind of just like this hat, just kind of looking a little discombobulated. And anybody who has seen Kirk and I out in the past knows that any dead space on the table is like wasted space. So we had our brunch and just apps and snacks and stuff all over the place. So Lee comes walking in from his morning walk, and he's not shy about like making an entrance. And he said, "Yo, Chris Fallica, Kirk Herbstreit, how you guys doing?" And Kirk, "Hey, what's up, Coach?" And Coach comes over, he looks at me, he looks at Kirk, he looks at the table, and looks at me again. Is this a PG podcast, or can I go R?
Have at it.
So he looks at me again, and he goes, "Look at you, Fallica. You're just like a big bear. All you do is eat, sleep, and shit." Ever since then, I've been the bear.
That is
wow.
So good.
I actually came across Lee Corso my senior year at Florida State. My roommate and one of my buddies, actually Patrick Lowenthal, who helped sponsor this podcast, his dad was a Golden Seminole, I think, if that's still the term. And Lee Corso was at the bar with us, and he puts his arm around me. He goes, "Listen here, buddy. There's one rule in this bar tonight. I buy, you fly." And
wow.
gave us free reign to the credit card. You're a 20, 21-year-old college kid, and Lee Corso and your best friend's dad are buying you drinks. You can't really beat that.
You didn't spend
That's
enough.
pretty damn good. Lee's awesome, man. He's great. It was great to see him a couple of weeks ago when Big Noon and Game Day were both in Ann Arbor for the Michigan-Texas game. And it was great to see and talk to him. And he's going to be doing this as long as he wants to do it. So no one, they're never going to get rid of him, and nor should they.
That's right. So Bear, switching gears to baseball a little bit here. Obviously, growing up in New York, were you a big Yankees fan growing up? Okay, so that was
the right side here. Petey's a huge Red Sox fan, so thank you so much for saying that.
See, the good thing was, like, I grew up, like, when I was growing up, Yankees were not necessarily. I was a little too young to remember 77 and 78 in the back-to-back series. I remember Winfield coming over in 81 and going, 1-for-29, whatever it was in the World Series when they lost to the Dodgers. And then they kind of stunk for a couple of years. And then 86, it was like Mattingly came up, and in 84 and like 86, he had that great home run. And then we went, dark 30. Terrible. Like, I remember, like, if Melito Perez was on the mound that night, we had a real chance to win. So that was the excitement. Like, if you had like Melito Perez on the mound, and maybe Matty Noakes would have a big game or something. But yeah, there was some lean years, and then finally, it was funny. I can remember being at Miami in the early 90s when Brian Taylor was taken first overall. I was like, pretty soon they're going to have like a rotation of Brian Taylor, Sam Militello, Jim Abbott, and Scott Kamenicki, and then we're really going to be rolling. And none of them really panned out as what they had hoped for. I mean, Abbott and Kamenicki had some good years, and Militello, I think, made like 5 starts, and that was it. And then obviously the sad story what happened to Brian Taylor. So then finally it was good to finally get going in the late 90s. There, I can remember. For the 96 series, I can remember the night that they clinched that we were at an Iowa-Ohio State football game. And I remember watching the end of Game 6 at Carver Hawkeye Arena in our production office, just loving everyone. Girardi hit that triple. That was great.
That's awesome. If you want to pick a favorite player, Bear, who do you think it would be? I mean, obviously, I think we're leaning Yankees here, but did you have a favorite player growing up or through the years?
I mean, it was Mattingly because he was the face of the franchise for so long. He was just such a great hitter, and it's kind of just what you would expect a captain of your favorite team to be. But then ultimately it became Mariano Rivera. I mean, the guy was just total lights out. He was the greatest relief pitcher ever to play, and he deserved a hell of a lot better against Cleveland in '97, and he deserved a hell of a lot better in the World Series against the D-backs in 2001 as well. But that guy, pure class, smooth. It was no frill. It was like, here's my cutter. If you can hit it, great. If you can't, oh well.
Right.
It's kind of like us in softball last night, Javi, right? It's the same pitch over and over.
Right. We still can't
hit. Bear, I noticed the Liverpool hat.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's no surprise that you're a fan of all sports in general, but is it difficult during the college football season to stay plugged in across the board? I know you're Fox's betting guy. I don't know if you're plugged into the Korean baseball league or whatever's going on in Japan. Is it tough in the midst of Big Noon Kickoff and college football, NFL, to stay plugged in with the Yankees and maybe some of your other favorite teams and leagues?
Not as tough as you think, because when I'm sitting there on the set on Saturday morning, if you happen to be behind me, you'll see Flash score up. You'll see Peacock up. You'll see some things going on. It was funny because last week, Brady Quinn actually has a piece of leads. He's a part of the ownership through that 49ers group. So he actually said to me before let me know what's going on and just give me like a signal, like me like a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a level, and let me know what's going on during the. But I'm paying attention, and the good thing is there's so many games during the week as well that you're able to follow those a lot more closely. But Prem and the big leagues, I'm able to keep up with that pretty well. But I pick my spots like with certain things in terms of what to follow, what not to follow, and information overload can be too much. And the good thing is now with game day, I used to be at site until early in the wee hours in the morning. I wouldn't get home until Sunday. But now I'm home late Saturday night, early Saturday evening, and I'm able to follow the NFL a heck of a lot more, which is good.
What time are you waking up on Sundays? Are you doing your EPL breakfast 7 to 11:30 and you're diving straight into Chris Hansen and Red Zone?
If Liverpool are playing, I'm definitely up for that. If City or Arsenal or one of the other big sides are playing, I'll get up and watch that. But if not, then we'll sleep in and do breakfast with the wife and go out and just give her the time before she knows that NFL's coming on and we can lock it. But the good thing is she's a Steelers fan. Like last week was her birthday, and so we went out. We had breakfast, had some brunch, and went shopping and went out for a little while. She's like, well, just as long as we're home, to be able to watch the second half of the Steelers game. But she wanted to watch the game. So
did you get her?
A very good birthday.
Did you get her the Justin Fields jersey for her birthday?
No. I did get a nice Pittsburgh shirt when game day was in West Virginia a couple of weeks back. They have the Pittsburgh team stores at the airport, so I did pick up a gift then.
That's awesome.
Bear, how many TVs are in the man cave? Put us on your couch on the man cave.
I'm gonna disappoint you here. I only have the one. Wow. But I will have the laptop up, and I'll have the iPad up, and I'll have the phone on the stand as well. So I mean, if that counts as 4, then I guess we're gonna be. I only, and it was weird too because when we moved and built a place a few years back, and I had my wife even said, she's like, if you want to get 2 TVs down here, you can. And I was like, I don't want to make it look too crazy. So I went with 1. So I just went minimalist.
I'm kind of old school. I'm tired of Red Zone. I'm like overstimulated. Call me old fashioned, but I'll throw up the Dolphins game. Give me 4 hours of disappointment rather than the twirl around the whole league. Maybe I'm a masochist, but there's something enjoyable now that it's almost vintage to just watch one game. Ooh.
You're right. And I think part of that too is for so long on the game day bus, I was the guy with the remote control with the 4 TVs that we had up there, and having to like go back and forth and set all of them. Like, you know what? The hell with this. I retired from that now. I'm going to change channel. One channel, it's going to be on that. I hit the back channel to set up a second one, and that's it.
That's great. Bear, we're going to be talking a lot about obviously some futures bets here. I know you got some tickets. The Mafia's got some thanks to Toad being in Vegas. But like I told you before the show, I mean, my head when I see you, I go right to college football. So I guess my question for you right now is going to be, is it too early? We got week 5 coming up here in college football. Is it too early for a national championship game prediction from you? And to double down on that, are we maybe seeing a potential national championship game happening Saturday night in Tuscaloosa?
We could be. I don't necessarily think Alabama is as good as they're being made out to be right now. I think their secondary has some problems. You look at the teams they played. USF had guys running wide open against them a couple weeks back, missed some plays. They played Wisconsin's backup quarterback, and their wide receiving group is certainly not great. I mean, it's obviously a good time to be catching Georgia but when they're starting wide receivers and without their best offensive lineman. But I think Kirby and Georgia have had this game circled. I think Georgia kind of is being a little bit dismissed right now. Now look, they play 4 of the top 5 teams or whatever it is, 4 top 6 teams in the country, and maybe they pick up some losses here or there. But I still think they are the most talented team when push comes to shove. And Ohio State's probably 1B, if you had to say that. So, I mean, I don't want to say for sure we're going to have a Ohio State versus Georgia national championship game, but I do ultimately think in the end, one of those two teams will be standing at the end. But hey, the playoff will provide some opportunities from other teams that if they peak at the right time and get hot and
pulling these guys up right here, Bear. I know you're waiting to say it. These guys right here.
Hey, well, you know what the funny thing about that, Javi, is I think Clemson has been a little bit dismissed after they got blown out by Georgia in the opening game. And look, most teams were going to get blown out by Georgia that game. I could very easily see a scenario where both Clemson and Miami make it to the college football playoff, because I think there's a really good chance Clemson wins out, or maybe they happen to lose to Louisville potentially, and they go to the SEC title game. Maybe they beat Miami, and Miami's undefeated or has 1 loss entering that title game. I think there's a really good chance that both the Canes and Clemson wind up making the SEC title game. But look, I don't think any of us really we joke about it on the chat all the time about how this is undefeated. Who's going to be invited to the national championship party in January 2025? And I think realistically, we were all hoping just for ACC title, make it to the playoff. But I think what we've seen so far in this era of college football is that the player acquisition, the people, whether Canes Connection, whoever else, went out and made sure Cam Ward was here, made sure Tyler Barron was here, made sure Damian Martinez was here. They hit on all these guys, and you've seen teams like Florida State and other teams who have missed in the portal. So we'll see what happens. I mean, they got Virginia Tech obviously this weekend, and then after that, they're going to be favored in every game. So
don't dismiss a 3-loss Florida State. Okay.
you know what? It's kind of like a weird game for them this week at SMU being such a big dog. But wow, I don't want to kick the Noles while they're down, but like I almost feel a little bad for DJ, because people, I don't know, what were people expecting from him? He's the same quarterback he's been for the last 2+ years. He had the one great game in the opening game, the first game he played again at Notre Dame when Trevor was out with COVID. I think it was. I can't remember if it was still COVID or if it was hurt. And it's been all downhill ever since. So,
FSU fans, I think, are also not realizing that Norvell lost a lot of playmakers on offense. Their starting tight end, their 2 top receivers are now NFL contributors. It's not like they're rookies on the bottom end of depth charts. Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman are both playing for their respective teams. So you bringing in a newcomer quarterback and a bunch of relative unknowns at your playmaking positions. Of course, there's going to be a drawback, but FSU fans, after last season being so exciting, there's just this natural, like, massive letdown. And for me, Saturday I get a hate watch, and Sunday I get a hate watch. I'm
lucky you.
Yeah,
Bear, Toad's in a dark place.
Yeah.
it's been a rough couple of weeks for the Seminoles, but Bear, switching gears, we're going to talk some baseball. Toto's in Vegas last week, and it was not to fix the UNLV collective. He was stayed as far away from that.
We need
as
a lot
possible.
of fixing, it seems like. I'm curious to see what happens with that story too.
But Bear, we want to get your eyes on some Mafia tickets, right? So we decided, hey, let's figure out who we want as our World Series champ. Toad took the Mets, and a little backstory. Toad was a diehard Marlins fan. The Marlins have lost Toad. He's fluctuated between the Mets, the Brewers. Toad is up for grabs. The only team not in the picture for Toad right now is the Miami Marlins. Yeah. Excuse me. They're the only one that's out.
Everyone today, let's go Tigers, baby.
So Toad has the Mets.
Got the win. Yep.
Yeah. Toad has the Mets. I have the Brewers. Petey has the Orioles. Bear, of those three teams, what do you think about our picks?
I don't like the Orioles at all.
All right.
I'll sign off, Bear, if you want.
Oh, was that you? You're the Orioles?
Yeah, AL East foes.
Yeah, they just peaked way too soon. I worry about their pitching. I mean, the bullpen is a disaster. I didn't get it. Like I would have been with if you in July. I would have been absolutely with you. You're like, oh my God, they got the best farm system in baseball. They can go out and get whoever the hell they want. And they just didn't trade any of their key prospects. And yeah, that's fine if like next year you're in a position to win the title, but you're in a position to win the title this year. Yeah. And you didn't do anything. And I know their fans are kind of upset about that. They stuck with Kimbrel as long as they could and then DFA'd him. It's one of the things that's one of the reasons why I actually have a lot of future tickets on the Royals. And if the Royals get in, then they could very easily be the 6th seed, and you draw the Orioles in the first round. That's a team I'd sign up to play the Orioles every time. The Mets, look, I have my own tickets. I've got a Braves to miss the playoffs at 22-1 that I got way back. I can't remember if it was when Acuna got hurt or when Strider got hurt, but it was way back when. And I was like, I'm like, are we sure the Braves are going to make the playoffs? And then it just completely spiraled out of control. So now we're down to the last few days of the year. Look, if the Mets get in, they're a dangerous team because, Manaya's been fantastic lately.
They got the power of friendship, Bear, okay? The vibes are at an all-time high in Queens.
Severino has been more than serviceable outside of his last start on Monday night. I think it was in Atlanta. The lineup can score even without Lindor, who – it's funny. I kind of threw out on a pod earlier, like around the All-Star break, and we were looking for bets. I'm like, could you make a case maybe for Francisco Lindor at MVP at like 50-1? And I kind of threw that out there. I'm like, yeah, I don't believe he's going to win, and then he continued to play great. Now obviously he's out with a back injury. So if the Mets get in, I think with that lineup that they have, they would certainly be dangerous. And then the other team with the Brewers are kind of the Brewers are forgotten, man. I think everybody was kind of expecting them before the year because they traded Burns and they lost their manager. Everyone kind of expected them to take a step back. But the kids that they brought up, and obviously Chiriot's had a monster year, and Frelick's been fine. And then the rotation outside, they lose Burns, are going to be fine. But they just kind of the lack of pressure, I think, has really helped that team. And leading start to finish has been of those three teams, I would say the Brewers certainly have the best chance to win because I think the NL, the Dodgers, who are the Dodgers trotting out there in the playoffs in the rotation? It's the same problem now.
What
are they going to get from Yamamoto?
The ghost of Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, ghost of Clayton Kershaw. Whatever they can get from Yamamoto. Well, Gavin Stone is out. Bueller,
Flaherty, maybe Flaherty.
Alex Vezia, former Marlin.
Bear, it's crazy when you think about the Brewers, right? Because it's like a tree falling in the woods, right? They're just around this time of year. Petey and I are former Brewers guys, so we understand their formula. The recipe is just put together a bunch of glue guys, hope that a couple of minor leaguers have career years, and they just seem to do it year in and year out. So from that perspective,
Willie Adames got 35 home runs.
Yeah, it's crazy. Willie Adames was a really highly touted prospect in the Rays system for a long time. Gets traded to the Brewers, and all of a sudden, he's going to be probably one of the most coveted shortstops in the free agent market next year. I imagine there's going to be a big market franchise that's going to make Willie Adames a very happy man. So absolutely crazy.
By the way, I think we could get a little Mets revenge in the postseason from a couple of years back if they wind up taking on the Padres in that first round.
Yeah, Bear. When you look at the Major League Baseball postseason, it's a lot. There's no rhyme or reason to it. It seems like the 162 game sample size is great, but then you get into the postseason, it's like, who knows what's going to happen? We saw last year with the D-backs and their run to the postseason, the Rangers as well. What do you look like? What catches your eye? Are you looking at starting pitching matchups? Are you looking at the team that gets hot at the end? Is there home field? Like, how do you factor your decisions when you're making decisions on who you like and who you don't like?
I think the biggest thing for me come postseason is pitching. I mentioned the team like the Royals. You have a 1-2-3 of Reagans, Lugo, and Singer. That's pretty damn good. And in a short series against the Orioles, we certainly don't have that type of pitching. That would lean. I think that's why you get a lot of these underdogs in these lower seeds winning in the playoffs, because they over the course, like I said, over 162 games, sure, it's going to manifest where they're not as good as these offensive teams. But at the same time, in a short series, the sample size is smaller, and you can get a wider array of variants of results. So a team like the Royals, a team like the Diamondbacks that made a bunch of trades at the deadline, and they got some of the rotation back, they solidified their bullpen quite a bit. Like, they'd be a really dangerous team for the Brewers, I think, in that first round as well, if the D-backs can indeed get in, because they've been leaking water big time as we entered the postseason. But that was the deal last year with them too. I mean, were they like 8-27 or something like that in their last 35 games or so, and they wound up making a run to the World Series? So it's just a question of getting in, and once you get in, anything can indeed happen. Like, even on the AL side, I think all year long, people have just been kind of waiting for Cleveland to kind of, all right, you lose Bieber, your rotation's not necessarily great. Yeah, you've got a great bullpen, but are these bats, are they going to stay hot? And you're going to continue to kind of piece together with your rotation, and they have. But I still wonder, like if they got to play the Astros potentially in the second round, if they will be good enough to beat Houston, because Houston obviously has that postseason pedigree and have been so successful there.
So we're not looking at anything other than starting pitching. What I like to think from a pitcher's perspective, Bear, if I'm looking at a team that, yes, they do have good starting pitching, but does their opponent have the ability to hit home runs? Because I think if you're going to get to some of these guys, starting pitching matters so much. You're not going to get sustained amount of hits. You're not going to string together a bunch of hits off these guys. Is there some serious home run power and thump in these lineups that, hey, if you do run into, a Royals rotation, do we have enough bat, potential in our lineup to say, hey, we can hit a 3-run home run in the 6th inning and relatively put this game away, right? So from where I sit as a pitcher, and Petey and I have talked about this, we get nightmares, right? Like, the teams that hit singles and doubles, those are fine. We're not worried about those. The teams that have the guys who hit 40 and 50 home runs, those are the ones that scare you, because they run into one and all of a sudden the game changes.
And that's something that I'm curious to get your take on the Yankees. And being a Yankees fan, like, in the postseason, can't you kind of figure out a way to maneuver yourself pitching around Soto and Judge? Like, there's nobody else in that lineup that really you fear. And it's like, okay, if Jazz Chisholm gets an RBI double and you lose, like, you're willing to take chances like that. Just don't let Judge and Soto beat you, right?
Petey ain't pitching. Petey, you're not pitching to Soto.
No, I'll pitch to Soto because I'll go left on left. I ain't throwing it.
Get guys on base on purpose, and Verdugo will ground into a double play. That's the plan.
How is he still in the lineup?
Because they don't have anyone else to put in the lineup.
It's amazing. Oh, what was it, like his last 17 plate appearances? He's accounted for like 18 outs because he's had like multiple double plays or something.
That's a great stat. Okay, so Bear, Toad has been the biggest Tiger stan so Toad and I went to Wrigley. Toad and I on the flight back were watching the Little League World Series game, and he proclaimed that at that point, I'll give him credit because he said the Tigers got something. They were like 8.5 games back. They were not even in the realm.
Good for you.
Yeah. So Toad.
Yeah, but I'm a coward.
He didn't take the ticket.
I'm in Vegas and I'm at the desk at the MGM, and I'm like, man, did I just put $10 on the Tigers? I didn't do it. I'm a coward. But is baseball What's more difficult? What harder to predict, like the NCAA tournament or like Major League Baseball playoffs? Like, what is more random? What's in your eyes? What's been more difficult to bet on?
I think more random would probably be the tournament, just because it's one game. It's one game. I mean, I don't want to say anything can happen, but in that situation, that you can get a lot of outcomes. But this is what's great about baseball compared to the NBA or NFL or NHL or whatever. Like, the fact that you could be the Tigers and people are talking about at the deadline, oh, you should trade Scooble. You're 11 games out or 11 games under 500, whatever it is. You should sell, and you should. And here they are. They get hot, and now, I mean, you got 3 games with the White Sox, and you're going to be in the playoffs, and you bring up your top pitching prospect, and you're going to throw him out of the pen. Like, that's a great story. It's reminiscent of what the Marlins did a couple of years back, where everyone like kind of laughed. Oh, they're going to fall off. And then here they were in the playoffs. So that's what makes baseball great. Like, you get you get stories like the Diamondbacks last year making the World Series, and you get these teams that get to the playoff and excite their fan base. So it's funny. I remember actually about a week or 10 days ago, you could still have gotten the Tigers at like plus 450 to make the playoffs, which you think about that now and you're like, well, why didn't I bet that? I guess I didn't expect the Twins to completely fall apart the way they did, and I didn't expect the Royals to kind of fall apart the way they did down the stretch. But once you get in, anything can happen.
So, Bear, who's it going to be? Who's holding it October 30th, the 31st, November 1st, whatever it is? Who's holding the trophy at the end of the year?
I hate saying it now because they obviously have taken on a ton of picks, but the Padres, I think, are the team that is built to win, just with that rotation at the top. And you got a stud and Cease. You got a great bullpen. You've got home run hitters throughout the lineup. You got guys. You got a great defensive guy too, in Merritt. Like they have kind of have that feel of the Nationals when the Nats won a few years back. Like, people have been expecting to win, and they never did. They always disappointed in the playoffs. And like last year was supposed to be the Padres' year because they had Soto and they had all, and then you had the Tatis suspension and everything happened, and then you wind up getting rid of Soto, and it was like, all right, the Padres are going to suck this year. And King went there, and he was great, and the pen was great, and Merrill is either 1 or 2 in the NL side, in the NL Rookie of the Year race. It feels like the Padres are that team right now. For me, very reminiscent of how I felt about the Nats a couple of years ago. But I just said that, by the way, NL Rookie of the Year. I don't want to give away my thoughts. You may have seen them on my timeline. So if you have, I apologize. But what are your thoughts on that? Like the ace pitcher who's putting up Cy Young level numbers, or the everyday rookie center fielder who's 25 homers, 80 ribbies, 15, 20 steals, and plays Gold Glove defense. Like, what's like your thought on the everyday player versus every fifth day pitcher on a team that hasn't been in the race for a while, but he's putting together numbers that resemble Chris Sale's season?
Ask the reliever who doesn't get the every 5 days off, right? Right, Petey, go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say, man, I think, like I want to say Skeens, just because, the name is so big now, right? Like, he kind of the face of the MLB, I think, especially for rookies and guys that came in this year. So, I think strictly off of the fact that, everybody knows Paul Skeens, and everybody knows who Paul Skeens' girlfriend is, and Paul Skeens is an all-star, and and Jackson Merrill, and again, I don't know if it's the West Coast bias here talking, but maybe you guys, don't get to see him play as much out there. And, I was thinking this when you were talking about the Padres too. Bear, they were playing 500 baseball right around June, I think too, right? Like it took them a little bit to start taking off. So, I don't know. I think I know what you're saying about the everyday guys, and Jackson Merrill has obviously been outstanding this year, but I feel like, Skeens with the name and who he is and sort of what he's done from the very start, like the fact that he came in and it didn't take him 2 or 3 starts to get going. He's pretty much dominated since day one. I think he probably takes that. But Javi, what, you feel differently, Javi, as a starter, or what?
No, I mean, my take, Bear, is it's Major League Baseball. They've never really done a great job with their stars, and I think marketing their stars. I think they kind of, amongst other sports, it's a little bit more difficult for them to gain traction with their biggest players. You think about Mike Trout. Mike Trout, has had some injury history here the last couple of years, but Mike Trout at his prime was one of those players that's probably once in a generation. And you think about it, he wasn't necessarily as big of a superstar as like a football star, an NBA star. So I think Paul Skeens has sort of been groomed into this role. He's the next in line for Major League Baseball. He started the All-Star game. I mean, you open up social media, Paul Skeens is somehow finding his way onto it. I personally think, to your point, Bear, Jackson Merrill's impact day-to-day to the Padres is probably more so important than a Paul Skeens who's pitching once every fifth day, and his season definitely looks like it. The proof's in the pudding, right, with the numbers that you spit out. But again, I think there's a little bit of, hey, this is our guy. We got to kind of groom this guy. And look, Pittsburgh's a starved city that I think is dying for a baseball team to finally come around and, sweep the city up by storm. It's a tremendous baseball city, tremendous park. So I'm happy for the Pirates to have Paul Skeens. I'm happy that the Padres have Jackson Merrill. If I had my vote, I'd say Jackson Merrill, but I'm leaning that I think it would probably be Paul Skeens.
And that's kind of how I feel about it. Like I'm in Team Skeens. And for a lot of reasons, you got it's kind of bigger than the game. It's an event every time he pitches. He's given hope back to Pittsburgh Pirates fans. And yeah, I know he came up late. And yeah, I know the Pirates have been out of it, but the numbers are unbelievable. But everything about him kind of transcends statistics. And look, a couple of years back, I had a Michael Harris Jr. ticket. Oh my God, the second, I should say, to win NL Rookie of the Year, and I'm happy I cashed that ticket at a very nice number. But I did come away, and it was after last year, feeling a little bit dirty. I'm like, how the hell, A, did Spencer Strider not win Rookie of the Year, and B, how the hell did he not win Cy Young this year? And then of course this year he gets hurt. So it's like, really, we're going to do this again and just deny a starting pitcher. Because he's not going to win the Cy, because Sal's going to win the Cy. Right. And you're not going to give him Rookie of the Year because he came up and he only threw 130 or 40 or 50 innings or whatever the hell it's going to be. The guy transcends the game. His numbers have been elite. And the biggest problem I have with this is if I come out here and support Skeens, people think it means I hate Jackson Merrill. You've got to make a choice. By the way, Paul Skeens has a girlfriend. Who is it? That way I can
yeah, she has a name, Petey.
Livy Dunn, and Bear. That might be a bigger name than Paul Skeens to a lot of people.
Way bigger.
Way bigger.
Yeah,
way bigger.
Yeah.
So,
but Bear, we thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been fantastic to have you on. I think we can all speak to the impact you've had on us and our lives. Every Saturday we grew up watching the Bear on TV in one form or another. Catch him now on Big Noon with Big Noon Kickoff with Fox. I know we listen to Bear Bets religiously, and we heard some of those takes, Bear. We heard those beforehand. We heard some of the stuff that you had said, and we appreciate it. I know Toad is going to be sweating out that 22-1 with you on Monday afternoon. You guys can
we're going to have to play 2 games. We have to play a doubleheader probably on Monday now because the D-backs won last night, and then turn around if you win. We're just going to send you across the country.
Good luck.
Good luck.
So Toad will be in solidarity with you as a newly crowned Mets fan trying to figure out how they're going to get into the postseason. But again, Bear, we thank you so much, man. You got a home with the Mafia forever. We appreciate it.
Love you guys, man. Appreciate it.